reconnaissance aircraft have been around for centuries. Some of the very first reconnaissance aircrafts were lighter-than-air balloons, said to have begun in the early 1800s in the Napoleon Wars. Throughout the Civil War, as well as World War I, reconnaissance balloons were used. But it wasn't until World War II with the Japanese C-6N that the reconnaissance plane or spy plane became predominant and highly used. But some of the greatest reconnaissance aircraft were developed in the Cold War. At Lockheed, one of the most famous designers of the reconnaissance aircraft is Clarence Kelly Johnson. Throughout the 60s, he developed the Lockheed U-2, the infamous SR-71 Blackbird, which was the first aircraft to break Mach 3. But Kelly Johnson was also famous for making the very first fighter jet to exceed Mach 2, the F-104. And even earlier, he made the first U.S. airplane to break 400 miles per hour, the twin-prop P-38 Lightning. But it was during his time at Lockheed that Skunk Works reconnaissance airplanes started to dominate the air during the Cold War. The AQM-60 Kingfish was the first single-engine plane to break Mach 4. But he's mostly famous for the U-2 and the SR-71. However, trying to break even bigger records to spy over the Soviet Union, Johnson initiated construction of the air base at Green Lake, Nevada, later known as Area 51, which provided a secret location to flight test the Lockheed U-2 as well as the A-12. The A-12 was probably the last infamous spy plane used during the Cold War and one of the fastest ever made. It was produced between 1962 and 1964, and it flew missions between 1963 and 1968. This program was not revealed to the public until 1995. It was Project Oxcart, initiated by the CIA to eliminate radar cross-sectioning, something they couldn't achieve with the Lockheed U-2, under the CIA Project Rainbow. And it was Area 51 that these planes were tested. I often believe that the reason Area 51 is so well thought of as having UFOs there is because my guess is the wise thing to have done is for Lockheed to spread that rumor. That way when they see this beautiful A-12 flying over, this airplane made no sense to them. Strangely, one of the biggest problems with the production of the A-12 was constructing and working with titanium. According to Ben Rich's book, his personal memoir of his years at Lockheed, all A-12 titanium came from the Titanium Metals Corporation out of the Soviet Union, who had no idea that the U.S. was using this titanium they were buying from the Soviet Union to create spy planes to spy on their homeland. Titanium also was very difficult to work with during the 60s to machine and develop curves which were necessary for Project Oxcart. During missions of the U-2 planes, several were shot down over the Soviet Union, as the danger of overflights above the Soviet Union, as well as the decreased necessity of reconnaissance aircraft due to the increase of reconnaissance satellites that began to take on a whole new different meaning. So the A-12 shifted its mission to Vietnam under Operation Black Shield, photographing surface-to-air missiles over Vietnam. Retirement of the A-12 came as the Soviet surface-to-air missiles began to make reconnaissance of the A-12 obsolete. Aircraft like the SR-71 Blackbird and the A-12 were originally designed as missiles were fired against them. They just simply had to hit the thrusters, speed up, and they could outrun easily these missiles. However, it was the new Soviet surface-to-air missiles that became really something that they just simply couldn't outrun. The only A-12 to take on shrapnel was over Vietnam. As a missile was fired at it, it did outrun it as it exploded. However, they did later on, upon investigation, find shrapnel in the airplane. Overall, there were only 15 A-12s made, totaling just over 3,000 flights, with only 5,080 flight hours combined. But as reconnaissance satellites began to dominate space, really kind of just put an end to Project Oxcart and the elimination of reconnaissance aircraft, and really just a need for them at all. So there's our take on reconnaissance aircraft and their history. And like any other weapon that we talk about on the history of weapon, as evil shows its ugly head, good must always rise above it. And it's things like reconnaissance aircraft that allow us to do that. Thank you for watching this episode of History of Weapons.